You know, it's funny. The world often tells us that the person who pulls away has the power, that the one who avoids, who shuts down, who disappears holds the control. But what if I told you that's not true? What if I told you that the real power belongs to the one who feels deeply and still chooses to love consciously? That person, that rare, extraordinary person, is the super empath. The super empath isn't someone who gets lost in emotion or loses themselves in someone else's chaos. No, they are the ones who see everything. They see your fear, your distance, your patterns, and instead of reacting, they understand. They don't chase to prove their worth. They choose to love because their heart operates at a higher frequency. When an avoidant meets a super empath, something remarkable happens. The avoidant feels seen, truly seen, for the first time. The empath reflects back not just love, but truth. And that's terrifying for the avoidant because suddenly their walls don't protect them anymore. They expose them. The super empath becomes a mirror so powerful that the avoidant can no longer hide from who they are. But here's the twist. The super empath's strength isn't in trying to fix the avoidant. It's in knowing when to step back, when to stop giving energy to a connection that only takes. They don't beg to be chosen because they already choose themselves. That's the moment the avoidant realizes, wait, I can't replace that. You can replace attention. You can replace attraction. You can even replace comfort, but you can't replace presence. You can't replace emotional intelligence, and you can't replace the person who saw you at your worst and still believed in your potential without losing their own. The avoidant may run to others, looking for easier, quieter, safer love. But it will never feel the same because nothing compares to the energy of someone who met you in truth, someone who didn't just want you, they understood you. And when they're gone, you realize you didn't lose a supply of affection, you lost your emotional compass. So if you are that empath, that giver, that feeler, that strong soul who's ever been made to feel too much, remember this, you were never too much. They were too closed. You are not replaceable because your connection came from conscious love, not codependency. You are the rare one, the one who can love and still let go. And the avoidant, they'll remember you, not because you stayed, but because you finally walked away with grace. And that silence will echo louder than any argument ever could. Because that is the power of the super empath. Emotional power has often been misunderstood. We tend to associate it with the person who appears more detached, the one who withdraws first, or the one who seems unbothered when things fall apart. On the surface, the avoidant seems to hold control because they dictate the pace, the closeness, and the emotional availability in a relationship. But real power doesn't come from who runs first. It comes from who has the courage to stay emotionally present. The person who can remain aware, calm, and compassionate in the face of distance is the one who truly leads the dynamic. That person, the super empath, doesn't use withdrawal or silence as a shield. They use understanding as their anchor. When emotions rise, the avoidant feels overwhelmed and escapes into solitude or distraction. They believe avoiding confrontation equals safety. But the super empath knows that emotions aren't a threat. They're information. They read emotional patterns like a language. They understand that when someone pulls away, it's not always rejection. Sometimes it's fear. Instead of taking it personally, they observe it, process it, and respond with calm clarity. That is emotional mastery, the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself. Being emotionally aware doesn't mean being passive or endlessly forgiving. It means recognizing that power doesn't come from control, but from stability. The super empath doesn't beg, chase, or dramatize because they don't need validation to feel secure. Their self-worth doesn't depend on how someone else reacts. They know who they are, what they bring, and how they love. That quiet confidence is what unsettles the avoidant most. When someone refuses to engage in emotional chaos, the avoidant's usual pattern loses its effect. Suddenly, their withdrawal doesn't create distance, it reveals insecurity. The empath's power lies in awareness of self and others. They can feel deeply without drowning, love fully without losing boundaries, and see pain without needing to fix it. This awareness is not a weakness, it's the ultimate form of strength. It allows the empath to make choices consciously rather than react emotionally. When the avoidant detaches, the empath doesn't panic. they reflect. When silence appears, they don't chase, they listen. And in that stillness, they hold the emotional power because they're the only one operating with presence. Emotional awareness is the foundation of healthy connection. It transforms love from survival into growth. The avoidant may rely on defenses, but the empath relies on understanding. The avoidant hides to feel safe. The empath stands firm to create safety. Over time, this difference becomes undeniable. The one who avoids emotions will always circle around the same lessons, while the one who feels them fully will evolve beyond the pattern. That evolution, that self-knowledge, is what gives the super empath their quiet, unshakable strength. So while it may seem that the avoidant controls the distance, it's the empath who controls the direction. Their awareness turns emotional pain into wisdom, and that wisdom becomes the kind of power that no amount of avoidance can match. The super empath is not someone who simply feels deeply, they feel wisely. They have a rare ability to read emotion without letting it consume them. They see through the noise, the mixed signals, the hot and cold behavior, the unspoken fears, and they understand the emotional undercurrents driving it all. Yet in doing so, they never abandon themselves. That's the difference between empathy and self-erasure. The super empath doesn't lose their identity trying to decode someone else's pain. Instead, they stay rooted in who they are while compassionately witnessing what another person is going through. This balance is what makes their love so powerful and so unforgettable. To see without losing yourself means to love without attachment to outcome. It means being fully present, offering genuine care, but never at the cost of self-respect. The super empath understands that their value doesn't lie in being endlessly available or forgiving, it lies in their integrity. They can hold space for someone's struggle, but they don't make that struggle their responsibility. When faced with an avoidant partner, this ability becomes even more vital. The avoidant often pulls away to protect themselves from emotional intensity, but the empath's calm, grounded nature quietly communicates safety. They don't demand closeness, they invite it through consistency and presence. However, their awareness also tells them when enough is enough. They can feel when the emotional connection becomes one-sided, when understanding starts turning into self-sacrifice, and that's where their strength shines the brightest. The super empath doesn't confuse love with endurance. They know that empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. So when an avoidant continues to withdraw, the empath doesn't chase to prove their worth. They pause to preserve their peace. They know that love that drains is not love that grows. To see someone deeply means to recognize not only who they are, but also who they're not yet ready to be. The empath accepts that they cannot force emotional availability. No matter how pure their intentions, they can reflect truth, show compassion, and model openness. But they cannot do the emotional work for someone else. This realization frees them from the endless cycle of trying to fix or save people who are afraid of being seen. It allows them to step into a love that's mutual, not one-sided. Their empathy becomes a mirror, not a magnet. It reflects honesty rather than absorbing dysfunction. The super empath sees pain and responds with understanding, not rescue. They hear silence and respond with reflection, not desperation. They remain present without losing their inner balance. This emotional equilibrium creates an energy that feels safe yet strong, gentle yet firm. And when they finally walk away, it's not with bitterness, it's with clarity. They know they showed up fully, loved honestly, and stayed true to themselves. That is what makes them irreplaceable. The super empath's gift isn't just their ability to see others. It's their ability to see themselves clearly, even while standing in the storm of someone else's emotions. When an avoidant encounters a super empath, they are confronted with something they have rarely, if ever, experienced: true emotional visibility. Avoidants build their lives around distance, shields, and control, believing that hiding their feelings keeps them safe. They are comfortable in ambiguity, in the dance of hot and cold, in the illusion of independence that shields them from vulnerability. But the super empath disrupts that pattern. By simply being fully present and emotionally attuned, the empath forces the avoidant to face themselves in a way that feels almost impossible. The avoidant cannot hide behind silence, charm, or avoidance because the empath perceives the subtleties beneath the surface. The tension, the fear, the longing. This recognition can be both alluring and terrifying because suddenly the avoidant feels exposed without the usual safety of their emotional armor. The empath's ability to reflect without judgment is disarming. They don't criticize, they don't manipulate, and they don't react impulsively to distance or withdrawal. Instead, they acknowledge the truth of what they see. They might say, "I understand that stepping back feels necessary for you," or "I notice that you pull away when things get intense." These statements, so simple on the surface, carry immense power because they validate the avoidance experience, while simultaneously demonstrating awareness and control. This mirrors back a level of honesty the avoidant is often unprepared to handle. For someone used to managing distance as a strategy, having someone calmly and insightfully witness their patterns creates an unfamiliar tension. The realization that emotional avoidance cannot hide them from the truth of their own behavior. The avoidant often experiences a paradoxical mix of comfort and discomfort in the presence of a super empath. Comfort because they are not being pushed or pressured to perform or feel differently than they can handle. Discomfort because the empath's presence inherently challenges the defense mechanisms the avoidant relies on. The empath does not seek to break down walls aggressively, but their quiet consistency, empathy, and perceptiveness expose the patterns the avoidant has relied on to feel secure. Over time, this exposure can make the avoidant feel both drawn to and unsettled by the empath. They may crave the connection while simultaneously fearing the intimacy it demands. Ultimately, the super empath's ability to hold space, reflect truth, and stay grounded while observing the avoidant creates a subtle but undeniable influence. They challenge avoidance not through confrontation, but through presence. And this is terrifying for the avoidant because it's not something they can replace or manipulate. The empath's awareness and emotional strength become a standard that no one else can match, leaving a lasting impression that lingers long after they step away, if they ever do. The super empath understands that true power lies not in clinging, but in knowing when to step back. Love is not about endless pursuit, and emotional strength is not measured by how much one can endure without boundaries. For the avoidant, distance and withdrawal feel safe, and they often assume that persistence will eventually win the other person over. But the super empath operates differently. They are aware that their value is not dependent on constant validation or reciprocation. They know that chasing someone who is unwilling or unable to meet them halfway diminishes their own energy, and they refuse to sacrifice their inner peace for someone else's comfort. Walking away when... This is where the power of reflection comes in. The super empath acts as a mirror that the avoidant cannot ignore. They show, without forcing, how the avoidant's choices affect not just themselves, but the people around them. They illuminate the emotional consequences of withdrawal, not with criticism, but with awareness. The avoidant, confronted with this reflection, realizes that their habitual distance may no longer work. They begin to see that the patterns they have relied on for protection are not sustainable in the presence of someone who understands, cares, and maintains boundaries. Necessary is not abandonment. It is an act of self-respect, an acknowledgement that emotional health and integrity come first. Stepping back is a deliberate, conscious choice. The super empath assesses the emotional dynamics. Clearly, they recognize patterns of avoidance, understand the fear behind withdrawal, and notice when their presence is met with resistance rather than appreciation. They feel the pain of detachment, but they do not let it cloud their judgment. They distinguish between temporary withdrawal caused by fear and persistent avoidance rooted in unwillingness to engage. When the latter becomes apparent, they choose to preserve themselves, not out of anger or pride, but because they honor their own emotional boundaries. This awareness gives them a unique power that the avoidant cannot match. The act of walking away transforms the dynamic entirely. The avoidant, used to controlling the rhythm of connection, suddenly finds themselves without the usual supply of patience, attention, or unconditional tolerance. The super empath's absence is not a punishment, but a reflection of self-worth. It communicates silently but profoundly. I am aware of my value, and I will not settle for less than mutual respect and understanding. For the avoidant, this is unsettling because their usual strategies no longer work. They cannot manipulate, avoid, or retreat to gain the same influence they once had. The empath's detachment is not driven by emotion or impulse. It is guided by clarity and self-awareness, which makes it impossible to replace. Ultimately, walking away is a testament to the super empath's strength and discernment. They love fully, but they do not lose themselves in the process. They demonstrate that true emotional power is not measured by how long one can endure neglect or unreciprocated effort, but by the courage to honor oneself and step back when necessary. The avoidant may run to others, seek easier connections, or attempt to fill the gap left behind, but no one can replace the presence, awareness, and unwavering integrity of someone who knows when to step away without losing love in the process. The super empath's love is unlike anything the avoidant has experienced because it is rooted in conscious awareness, not reaction or neediness. While others may offer affection that is conditional or transactional, the empath gives fully yet wisely, with boundaries that protect their heart. This kind of love is rare because it balances depth with discernment, presence with self-respect. It is not the kind of connection that can be replicated through convenience or habit. The avoidant may encounter many people who provide comfort, attention, or admiration, but none will match the intensity and clarity of a con. This deliberate withdrawal also serves as a demonstration of conscious love. The super empath does not leave out of spite, nor do they abandon care or compassion. They leave to protect the integrity of the connection and their own emotional health. It is a reminder that love is a two-way street. It requires presence, engagement, and vulnerability from both sides. By stepping away when the avoidant cannot meet them, the empath establishes a standard that is both firm and gentle. It teaches the avoidant a lesson in accountability, even if indirectly, action with someone who loves consciously. This is what makes conscious love irreplaceable. Conscious love is intentional. The super empath does not love out of fear of being alone, out of obligation, or simply because it feels comfortable. They love because they choose to engage fully with the other person while remaining fully present to themselves. Their attention is not distracted by insecurity or need. It is focused, steady, and perceptive. They notice the small details, the unspoken fears, the subtle shifts in mood, and they respond with empathy and understanding rather than judgment or withdrawal. The avoidant may respond initially with intrigue or even relief because this level of understanding feels safe, but over time, it becomes something that unsettles them. The empath's love reflects not only who they are, but also the truth of who the avoidant is. And that reflection cannot be duplicated by someone less attuned or less self-aware. Moreover, conscious love leaves a lasting impact because it teaches without coercion. The super empath communicates their value through their presence, their boundaries, and the way they honor both themselves and the other person. This creates a standard of emotional integrity that the avoidant cannot ignore. No amount of charm, attention, or superficial connection can replace the experience of being truly seen and understood by someone who operates from such awareness. The avoidant may try to seek comfort elsewhere, but the depth of connection, the mutual respect, and the gentle insistence on authenticity cannot be replicated. The empath's influence lingers, often long after the relationship ends, because they create an emotional imprint that combines care, clarity, and self-respect. In essence, conscious love is transformative. It goes beyond the temporary highs of attraction or the comfort of attention. It challenges, nurtures, and expands both individuals while remaining grounded in respect for self and other. This is why the super empath cannot be replaced. Their love is not a commodity to be replicated. It is an experience, a mirror, and a standard. Once someone encounters it, they understand what authentic, conscious, and unwavering emotional presence feels like, and nothing else will ever feel the same. In conclusion, the super empath is a rare and extraordinary presence. Someone who loves with awareness, stands firm in their boundaries, and reflects truth without losing themselves. Their energy, compassion, and emotional intelligence leave an imprint that no avoidant can replace, showing us the profound power of conscious love and self-respect. To all of you who have felt deeply, who have given love wisely, and who have honored yourselves even when others could not, remember that your presence matters and your love is irreplaceable. Thank you for allowing me to share these insights today and for celebrating the strength, courage, and heart it takes to. The irreplaceability of the super empath is also rooted in their ability to love without attachment to outcome. They do not cling, they do not beg, and they do not compromise their boundaries to maintain a connection. Their love is free yet firm, compassionate yet discerning. This makes it impossible to substitute because it is not simply about affection or attention. It is about presence, awareness, and emotional intelligence. The avoidant may leave, return, or seek similar feelings elsewhere, but they cannot manufacture the same combination of depth, stability, and conscious care. Be a true super empath.